Good morning. Welcome to the celebration of the life of Janet Swanson. Thank you so much for gathering together today to remember and celebrate Janet. I'm the Reverend Mary Geer, minister for the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm joined today by Troy Fisher, OUUC's music director, who knew Janet for a long time. Thank you to all who helped create and support this sacred space today. Welcome. We are live streaming and recording this service today. We are grateful for the gift of your presence in whatever way you have arrived here. We gather as our ancestors have gathered for millennia to mourn the passing of someone we love. We gather today to grieve the death of Janet, a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a traveler, a sister, an adventurer, a lover of beauty and nature. Janet shared the blessings of her life with so many people. Today, may we be grateful for the laughter and the love that she cultivated and that she leaves behind. Steve, would you like to come forward?
Thank you all for coming today. It's good to see you. I'd like to thank Sheila for bringing this picture, which my mom loved. Thanks to Reverend Mary for helping us organize this and providing us space. I don't really have a speech prepared, so we're going to light this chalice here. So. We light this chalice, which transforms wax into light and warmth, to remind us of our own living. As we remember Janet, may today bring forth transformation in ourselves from grief, healing, from memories, wholeness, and from celebration, love.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. sails, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me. Hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
By all accounts, including her own, Janet Swanson had a life filled with blessings. Janet was born on January 8th, 1938, to Elliot Emil and Alice Harris Schmidt in West Seattle, Washington. They would welcome Janet's younger brother Jim a few years later. Janet's family nurtured her love of the outdoors with camping and riding horses, a love of nature that would only strengthen and grow throughout her life. She had adventures and travels, taking the bus into Seattle and serving as a counselor at a girls' camp. Her love of travel and adventure would always stay with her. Janet's family was active in the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, where she taught some of the primary classes and played the organ for services, planting seeds for a love of music that would grow throughout her life. Education and growth were important to Janet. She continued to learn over the course of her life and nurtured the love of learning in her children. Janet graduated in the top 10 of her class from West Seattle High School in 1956, then was awarded a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Reed College in Portland, Oregon in 1960. In 1961, Janet married Ray Swanson, and they had 3 children, Stephen, Sheila, and Andy. The family lived in several places on the West Coast, settling in Tumwater near here in 1973. Janet's skill with numbers was a part of her work throughout her life. Right after taught advanced math for a couple of years, educating students that were only a few years younger than she was. When Ray and Janet bought and ran Boulevard Nursery and Florist in Olympia, Ray managed the nursery while Janet provided bookkeeping support for the business at the same time that she maintained a full-time job for the state of Washington. She worked as an accountant for the Liquor Control Board before getting hired as the business manager for the state of Washington Law Library. She retired in 1998 after a tenure there of 20 years. When Ray and Janet divorced in 1984, Janet continued her love of adventure, travel, and music. She went on many trips throughout Europe, Morocco, Costa Rica, and Hawaii. Her children say she would travel on a whim. Her love of the outdoors inspired her to take up running and to join the local mountaineers, where she met many of her lifelong friends. She enjoyed bicycling, cross-country skiing, and hiking. She went tent camping well into her 60s, and she was particularly proud of completing the Mountaineers Scrambling course. The skills she gained gave her the confidence to climb peaks such as Mount Adams and Mount St. Helens. Janet's love of nature continued in her own backyard. She was a master gardener and a regular part of local garden tours. She supported the local music scene by attending hundreds of concerts, operas, and theater productions. Janet loved to introduce others to the things she enjoyed, offering frequent invitations to family, friends, and acquaintances. Family was another important value in Janet's life. She was an especially devoted grandmother to her 3 grandchildren, Janine Smith, Simon Swanson, and Christine Smith, and enjoyed sharing many of her adventures with them. She showed up in the big life events of her many nieces and nephews, some of whom are here today to celebrate her life. Janet's children remember her strong sense of civic duty and just being involved. They say she would always make sure that they voted as soon as they were legally eligible to do so. Janet enjoyed the love and companionship of Gary Minns for 26 years. For 26 years of her life, they had many joyous years together. And even after their romantic relationship ended, Gary remained a loyal and caring friend to Janet until the very end. Janet and her family joined the Unitarian Fellowship of Olympia back in 1969. Her children remember the little church in Tumwater where they attended for a time. And Margaret Knutson remembers meeting Janet at the Unitarian Fellowship, and that she and Janet took their 3-year-olds, Anna and Andy, to swimming lessons together. Janet returned to OUUC, this congregation, later in life, where she was known as an avid supporter of the music program and a passionate advocate for social justice. Janet's children describe her as a doer. When she recognized a need, she would step up and take action. They said she just did it. Whatever needed to be done, she was always moving forward. They also remember her sense of humor. They described family gatherings throughout their lives filled with laughter and giggles. Janet loved jokes and found humor in many things, leading to many moments of pee your pants laughter, as Andy said. And while I didn't know Janet, I have a sense that she would have taken great delight that the words pee your pants laughter were said at her memorial service. And at the end of her life, Janet experienced cognitive decline that led to the need for professional care. She spent the last 10 years of her life in assisted living, then memory care. While she was not at all happy with what was happening to her, Her children say that she came to some peace in the last 6 months. She celebrated her last birthday this past January with some family and a few close friends, feeling well and enjoying the celebration. Janet Swanson died on March 28, 2023, at the age of 85. Steve, Sheila, and Andy say that Janet would want us to remember her as she wanted to be remembered, full of life and love, curious about the world and about people, telling jokes and laughing, enjoying and nurturing color and beauty, and getting important things done. She generously shared her many blessings with grace and humor. She was a loving mother, grandmother, sister, and aunt, always there for those she loved, cheering them up and cheering them on. We miss Janet and offer our thanks for her presence in our lives and in our community.
All right, thank you, Reverend Mary, and hello, everybody. It's great to see everybody here. Some of you we haven't seen for a while, so it's nice to catch up, right, after a lot of years. So, yes, I'm Sheila, Janet's daughter, and I was the chosen of the three to share a few memories of Mom, and hopefully bring back a few memories for all of you as well. So obviously difficult to summarize a few things when you've known somebody that long, but we'll see what we can do. So yes, not only was Janet our mother, I think all of us would be fairly enthusiastically agreeing that she was also a good friend to us when we were adults. So we did spend a lot of time with her. I'm not going to look at you anymore. So yes, how nice to have a mother that's also your friend. Lots of memories to choose from, and I tried to narrow it down. But yes, Mom took joy in many things, and I'm trying to figure out, yes, what would connect all of you with some of those memories best. So the first one for me was her love of books. Mom was always at the local bookstore. She was always at the library, and she fostered that love of books in each of us. For me particularly, she always loved the murder mysteries, right? So she was sharing her murder mystery authors with us frequently. I know for me, she started with Agatha Christie. I never really got into Agatha Christie, but we did certainly enjoy the Sue Grafton murder mysteries. Brad and I both read J.A. Jance, right, with J.P. Beaumont. We have the new Jane Austen mysteries, with which Christine has been enjoying. Some Sherlock Holmes, maybe. There's a newer, what is it, Beekeeper's Apprentice. And then also she got me into the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, which I still enjoy those a lot. So maybe you also got into those because of Mom. Mom, we all have probably spent at least some time with her in the outdoors. Hiking was particularly popular. She'd go to the Olympics regularly. She scaled many peaks. I never would have made it up, but in her heyday, maybe you were up there with her, Karen, a lot, but yes, lots of hiking in the Olympics. Always a walking or hiking opportunity. As soon as the grandkids were able, we were always out walking, Priest Point Park, Tumwater Falls Park, always out and about with Mom on the walks. And then I didn't know this, but I think Gary mentioned this, that this Tuesday Trotters group was actually Mom and a few of her friends started that, which I didn't realize they had actually started that together. But if any of you were out there, maybe some of the ladies over here, were you Tuesday trotters, maybe? No? All right, so, yep, lots of action there. As a family, we all found that we enjoyed cross-country skiing. So during the winter and while we all lived in the area, we were frequently out and about with Mom skiing. One of our favorite trips was the Mount Bachelor trip over Christmas. Andy specifically brought that up as one of our more favored ones, but for me, Mom just said, we're going to Bachelor. Do you want to come? We're going to ski for 5 days. And she made all the arrangements and just told us what we were supposed to do. And we showed up and had some great days of skiing and lots of food and met a few people there. But I think for most of those days, we were skiing so hard and all we could do at the end of the day was eat and then go to sleep. But yeah, good times on those ski trips, though. Those were nice. The funny story that I have, and unfortunately, the main people in this story are no longer with us either, but I need to mention our friends, the Boomers. Mom and Dad met Adrian and Ralph when Adrian and Ralph first moved to the Olympia area and became fast friends. They were at a concert by, I think it was the Ink Spots, right? And just hit it off immediately and ended up going and taking on all these projects with them. And part of this outdoor theme is that we would go collecting wood with the Boomers. And who knew how much Mom would enjoy splitting wood? So she was always the one that would do all the splitting of the wood and never blink an eye, but she'd be out there all day. Yeah, Ralph and my dad would be the chainsaw and Mom would be the splitter. So she talked about that. So yes, late in her life, she was still talking about loving to split wood. So let's see here. So gardening is next. Gardening, obviously, I think everybody here knows how much Mom loved her garden. It's all started, I think, and Jim, I mean, grandparents always had a very productive vegetable garden. So started up with that, and then she married our dad, who had an career in agriculture and was pursuing that. Had a few moves with this agricultural work. So in California, we were helping with the tomato greenhouses, and if we were being particularly well behaved, we got to go into the orchid greenhouse, which was extra special, right? But yeah, Mom would always keep us busy. Steve and I were in that greenhouse helping with whatever she thought a 6, 7-year-old could do, and Andy was bouncing in his bouncy seat in between the door frame, right? So that's where we all started with a lot of work in the greenhouses. But then we moved to Canada, and there was still a large garden there, also working at a greenhouse, and finally coming back to Tumwater. So Mom and Dad bought the Smith's greenhouse, was what it was at the time, turned it into Boulevard Nursery and Florist, and ultimately, they ended up getting a divorce, but the reason I wanted to tie all that in was that led to Mom becoming a master gardener and having all sorts of wonderful plants in her yard because she and Dad had gotten those together, and she just continued on with that, right? So ultimately agreeing to do the garden tours, and 1 year having a quartet in the garden, which was especially special for her that year. And Janine and Christine and I would go and help and serve lemonade and cookies, right? And I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Mom had that cat Buddy. And Buddy would literally lead people around the yard on the garden tour. I think, I don't remember if he talked a lot during that time, but it was the oddest thing, this cat. So we brought the little Buddy wood figure who sat on the table, but Buddy the cat was helpful on the garden tours. Let's see. So yeah, those were fun times. And I know Mom, even though leading up to it, she was always very stressed about not doing this again, it's too much work. But of course, then somebody would ask her and she'd do it again. let's see, last, okay. Then I'm on to music and theater. So this is big because the girls and I were heavily involved with her with a lot of the local theater when they were growing up. So she wasn't into mainstream music and movies. It was all about live theater and music for Mom. So she shared that love with us, right? Well, started with me. So my senior present for senior in high school was a trip to Seattle to see Pirates of Penzance. So that just tells you, big deal for Mom, right? I don't know if I would have given my 18-year-old self that present, but anyway, she gave that to me. So I got to go with a few friends, and well, now I have to admit that at the end of it, we had a slight traffic accident. But other than that, the show was wonderful. So then, yes, see Pirates of Penzance. For many years, Mom, usually with Gary, they had season tickets to the opera, right? And Margaret, you were saying you'd see them up there too. So lots of common interests. It was a rare week that Mom didn't go to the local community theater. Probably Troy knows that, right? Sometimes she'd see local productions more than one time because it was so good. She'd be raving about it. She'd say, we're going to go again. So off they went. So now I have to go to the story for main Janine's story. But another thing about Mom doing things, right? So when Janine was 12, she called me and said, there's this theater group in town, and she was so excited about it. It was Kids at Play. And she said, I think this would be great for Janine. I want to sign her up. And it's a six weeks program, and Janine's 12. And I'm like, I don't want Janine to be away all summer for, Mom, how are you going to do this? Well, she had it all planned out, right? Because she was a very organized lady. She's like, nope, I'm going to take care of it. I'll get Janine to all the rehearsals. We'll get her to all the performances. And then Christine and I would come down for the performance, right? So there we went. And as promised, she took care of everything herself. Even what Gary mentioned earlier, the corkscrew curls, having been up for hours and hours, because anybody that has fine hair and has tried to curl that, you know what a bit of work that is. So she took care of all of that. And then we came down, and throughout that whole time, we all went to each of the performances every week. And so through all of that, we all are very familiar with all sorts of musicals, right? And she would continue to take us to other plays and musical outside of that season. And I think it's been great for the grandkids that they got that exposure. So very grateful for that for Mom. And then I guess this might not work out well for me, but Mom's friends and family were very important to her. So she, I was going back through some letters, and she kept talking about, oh, and so came over, and we had a wonderful time out in the yard, or all of that. So I just appreciate everybody that was able to make it today, because everybody here is very important in her life, and she enjoyed everybody's company so much when they were able to spend time with her. So let's see. I got to thank, just while I'm up here, because I got to do it, got to thank Gary for helping so much, and Karen and David, I'm so glad you made it today. The last couple years would have been so hard without you, so appreciate you. Okay? Hey, thanks. That's all I got. Now Jim. Jim hopefully has lots of jokes.
I don't know about that. First of all, this picture. She loved that picture. I don't know where she got it. She told me where she got it, but it was away from here, without the United States. I think it cost her a couple $100. She just loved it. And she had to have it specially arranged to send to her. Now, I'm going to see her a little different, maybe, because I know her as her brother, her little brother. And I don't know her like you did later on in her life. But some of the things I'm going to say are repetitious of what Reverend Mary said. But what Reverend Mary said, she got from me, because I told Sheila. So a lot of my notes are kind of repetitive, and I'll try not to be real long. Janet's father was an engineer and draftsman. Elliot Emil Schmidt, he had descendants from Germany, obviously, with the name Schmidt, and he also had Dutch and British ancestors. My mother, Alice Harris, was the great-granddaughter of Mormon pioneers that crossed the plains in covered wagons. Janet was an only child for 8.5 years. My parents were married almost 8 years before they had her. And I think they were thinking, we're not going to have any kids. But they had Janet. And then they got her for 7.5 years without me. That's why she didn't like me when I came along. Janet had a little rocking chair, and my mother used to braid her hair in pigtails. And if you see her picture as a little girl, she's got pigtails, because mother used to braid those. And I have my mother's journal, and I've read that in there. You've already heard this, but I'm repeating it. She loved hiking. Now, I don't know if you inherit things or not. My dad loved hiking. His favorite place to hike was Yosemite. He loved hiking. Janet was just like that. And we used to go up to the Canadian Rockies, and we went up there. Janet and my dad would plan where they were going to go, and we would go on some dirt roads, and we would camp. But she always liked hiking all of her life. As was already stated, she was in the top 10 of her high school, West Seattle High School. Now, this wasn't a high school of 100 kids. This was a high school of about 750, and she was in the top 10. And she had a special teacher in mathematics named Helen Dunn, and Helen Dunn helped her apply for scholarships. She got quite a few scholarships. I don't remember all the schools. I've tried to remember. I know 3 or 4 of them. She had a scholarship to Brigham Young University, one to Smith College, which is back east. I think she had one to Stanford, and the one she took was Reed College. Wonderful school, liberal arts school in Portland, Oregon. She loved to go there, and she got an $800 scholarship. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But in 1956, $800 was quite a bit of money. Graduated in mathematics. I think Reverend Mary already said this, taught at Ingram High School, and somewhere along the line, she met Ray Swanson. She attended the Quaker church, which I don't know a whole lot about, but I remember she used to come over to our house for dinner, and she would leave a little early because she wanted to go to the Quaker meetings in the University District. I wish I had talked to her a little more about that. I don't know. But she found great respect and reverence for the Society of Friends that we usually call Quakers. My dad taught her to play the piano. She never had a professional piano player teacher. My dad taught her. And he started to teach me. I don't know, a lot of things he gave her, he never gave to me. And I think she felt the same way about me. She would say, Dad, Mom favored him, not me. And I kind of felt the same way about her. She got to go horseback riding at Salmon La Sac. Maybe you've heard of over by Cleellum. Dad took her over there horseback riding. And when I got in high school or junior high, Dad, how come you don't take me over there? And I kind of thought, well, they're older. Because my parents were a little bit older when they had me. But I was always kind of jealous. She seemed to get more attention. She had horseback riding, always had horses in her bedroom. She really loved horses. In church, she played the piano. Dad taught her. I think she played the organ in some formal meetings. And she taught the little kids Bible lessons. I don't remember dating a whole lot in high school. I remember she had one guy that really liked her. I think he wanted to marry her. His name was Dave. And she kind of included me. I was a little brother, but I remember going out on a date with her, and we went out and had Sundays, probably the nicest Sundays I've ever had. She took me with Dave, and we went out together. And I remember very well, my mother would have me babysit, or have her babysit me. And she'd always say, Jim, go in and get up your bath, come out, and I'll play finance with you. I'm not sure what finance, I think it was kind of like Monopoly, I don't know. But I remember looking forward to playing finance with her. I intruded on her life. We lived in a 2-bedroom house. Where was I supposed to go 8.5 years later? But I took her bedroom away from her. I stayed with Mom and Dad for a few years. Then I got older. My dad was an engineer and draftsman, and Sheila, Stephen, and Andy will know this because they went to the house. And my kids know. Dad filled in the front porch, which was open, and then he built a room in the basement with beautiful wood paneling and a ship's ladder That's what they remember. The shit. My kids loved to run up and down that ladder. That was Janet's bedroom. And he had to build that room because he didn't want to move, and we only had 2 bedrooms. As I said, Janet taught, and as we said, Janet taught math at Ingram High School, went to Reed College, and I remember her bringing home something from Reed College that we'd never had before. It was called pizza. And this is 1956. We didn't have pizza then. Those of you that are old like me, we didn't have pizza then. And she brought home, she says, Mom, I like to make something for you. And she made the pizza. But you know something they put on pizza then that I don't hear anymore was anchovies. And she had these little salty fish. And I don't see them anymore. But I remember Janet talking about the anchovies and putting the anchovies on the pizza. I don't remember her particularly interested in plants when she was growing up. But I remember as soon as she got involved with Ray, I got to tell you one more thing about in high school. She had a lot of high school friends, girls. I don't remember dating much, and they had all these funny names for each other. Janet's name was Bushhead. And 2 of her closest friends were Ernie and Birdie. And they had more fun together. They had a lot of fun together. Anyway, Janet taught mathematics, Ingram High School in north part of Seattle. Somewhere along there, she met Ray Swanson, and Ray was really in the nursery. Because I remember when I first met him, I think the guy's name was Lem, but I'm not sure, out in Edmonds, and he had a nursery. And Ray loved to go over to Lem and hear about the plants. He especially loved rhododendrons. That, to me, was what he liked the most. And when Janet got involved with him, she just took all that over. So as it's already been said, she was really big on plants. There was always plants everywhere, beautiful plants, and that's what I think of her as someone that was always interested in plants. I think of Janet as energetic. I saw her at age 65 playing basketball with my sons in her driveway. Now, what 65-year-old woman would play basketball with 12 or 13-year-old boys? But she did. That's the kind of person she was. I can never imagine her in a wheelchair. And I know she was in one for a while, but I didn't want to see her in a wheelchair. Gary sent pictures, I would see her. I don't want to see her. That to me, she was energetic and full of life and a free spirit. Gary, I want to thank you for being so wonderful to her. As Sheila's already said, you were so wonderful to her, and I can't say enough good about you. Now, I'm going to say a couple of religious things. I don't want to offend any of you. You may not agree with me. You may not even like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. We're spirit and we're body. Our spirit is inside our body. It's like a hand and a glove. Our spirit is our hand. The glove is our body. While the body and glove are together, like we are here, they work together. But what happens to the glove? It wears out. And when it wears out, it comes off. And when it comes off, the glove comes off, the hand, the spirit doesn't have anything to work with, and it's gone. It's a spirit, though. I don't believe Janet's dead. Now, the reason I'm saying that partly, and I wouldn't say that if I didn't think she didn't agree with me, is we were sitting in our family room in my house, and we were talking about our mother, and I told her, we were talking about her, I said, Mother is not dead, Janet. And she looked at me like, I don't know if that's true or not. And she looked away, and then she looked at me, and then she said, I think I believe that. So that's what I want to share with you. I do not believe she's dead. Now, how come I can't see her if she's really alive? It's because our eyes only see certain things. We have material eyesight. I mean, owls see things I don't see, and dogs hear things I don't hear. There's a lot around us, tons of things around us we don't see. So I believe she's very much alive, and I believe that her children and you can see her again. She's not gone. Her personality, her spirit, who she is and what, does not die. It's everlasting. It's still there, and we can still feel it. Well, I had a wonderful sister, and I'm really glad I got to be here, and I guess that's all I have to say. But anyway, I appreciate all of you, and she was a great person.
Hard to picture my dad as a little brother. It has been a joy to be here and to visit with some of you. And I suspect when you hear my father talk about the energy and the enthusiasm and the just zest, appreciation for life, that all of you just experienced that. Even in as you spoke of the old age that she experienced. I heard a religious leader say once that if the more mature haven't dulled their senses because of excess or disuse, they can find joy in the simple, in the song of a bird, in an ice cream cone, in a puppy, in a sunrise or a sunset. And to me, that was Aunt Janet. And if we had lived, we live in Salt Lake City, Utah, but if we had lived closer, I would have seen her all the time. We had so much fun when we were in town. I have 8 children. My wife will say 9, including me. But we had so much fun. She was so playful. I did play basketball with her when I was 12 or 13 years old, and she was really good too at 65. She didn't just play, she was actually really good. And again, that was just a great memory of her. And a reminder as I get older and older of what it is that really matters most. The world would say money, would say fame, would say fortune, would say, and Aunt Janet just had a love for the simple, an appreciation for family and friends and loved ones, and all that really does matter. My wife's grandfather, a few years back in his 90s, an awful lot of possessions. Land and property, and he was a professor at Brigham Young University in Utah. And at the end of his life, we saw him in a small room. The closet was maybe this big from top to bottom, and that's all he was able to fill. All of his possessions at the end of his life had to fit in this little tiny closet. And he didn't seem to mind. He didn't seem to mind because I believe he, just like Janet, he understood what really matters most. A biblical verse a lot of you will be familiar with. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And because of that resurrection that many of you believe in, we believe that she'll live again. And we'll believe that her body in that state will be far better, as great as it was here, far better than the one here. I believe that. I've come to know that that's true in some very remarkable ways. I'm grateful to know that. And I'm grateful to know that all that we do in this world has purpose and meaning. And that all that really matters, we get to take with us. And I bear my witness of that, even in the Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yep, it's time for you to sing. Thank you so much for your music. There's a reading to be shared.
It's a tough act to follow. I'm Janine. I'm Janet's oldest granddaughter. And I have a poem that I'm sure that any of you who knew my grandmother would immediately identify with her. By Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's actually on the back of our pamphlets, in case anyone wants to see if I misspeak at a moment. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of the intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know that one life has breathed easier because you lived here. This is to have succeeded. I feel fortunate that I got to spend 2 different summers with my grandmother, and that I was able to be there for her in those last couple years when she may have struggled, but even in those moments, and particularly when I was a child, she always made you feel like she was happy you were there. Thank you.
Janet's children looked through many pictures, I'm told, in order to put together some images from her life. There are many stories and memories of Janet's here with us today. We make some time to hear a few of them now. For those who are joining us online, I invite you to share a quality or a brief memory about Janet. You can put it in the chat, and we'll make sure that your remembrance is shared with the family. For those here on site, if you have a story that must be told, I invite you to come up here to share it in the microphone so that we all can hear. And there will be time for fellowship and sharing stories after the service.
So oh my goodness. I'm Andy. You saw me a bunch of times. I'm the ad-lib it, wing it kind of guy. So this has been mentioned a couple of times. Apparently this is my story. I was the one that was like, it'd be good to have it there. And I had no plan. This was not premeditated. But then Jim mentioned it too. I know the origin of the painting. I know Dante. Rondo, I forgot his last name. He's, my mother was down in Monterey visiting me in, I believe, 1999. I had moved there the year before. She and I were walking around visiting many different places during an art gallery walk and appreciating variety of art. We found this tiny artist's room in the back of the Pacific Grove Art Gallery. And there was a fellow in there who looked very much like he would prefer to be surfing right then. Very tan, long hair, friendly dog in the little tiny artist studio. And we started talking to him. And my mother was very interested. Perhaps he was cute. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw this painting stored in an upper quarter shelf, and perhaps 3 inches of the painting were sticking out from the, like, there were probably 50 paintings all right there. And she was like, "What's that one?" And it was like way high. And the guy's like, "Well," she's not like, "Really, what's that one?" And so he like got his ladder, climbed up there, got it down, and she was just like, "How much do you want?" And so that's where the painting came from. And it was actually the cover of some brochure for an event down in Monterey a couple of years previously. And he had moved on to like photography or something. He wasn't painting anymore. He thought this was just stuck in his art gallery forever. So then proceeded with the negotiations that Jim heard about. Those were intense, because how do you ship something like this safely from Monterey to Olympia? So this became well, I know a guy who might be going up to Tumwater, and he could drop it off. And so there was this vague, yes, well, I'll get it there somehow. And so at the time I was with my first wife, who was in the Army, and my mother said something to the effect of, "If you don't get me the painting, his wife is going to come by and break your legs." Because she knew that I did not look intimidating at the time. So anyway, I just wanted to give you the full painting story, and also to thank my mother for teaching me how to trust my own instincts and inspirations, and occasionally just do things because that's what I feel like doing. Thank you.
I'm Janet's, one of her oldest friends. I've been a mountaineer with her for years. We went to Morocco together and rode a camel together. And we will really miss her. She was one of our dearest friends. I just don't know what to say other than I really enjoyed knowing Janet. She was so much fun on everything we did. And I better sit down before he claps.
I'm Diane. I'm Brad's sister-in-law, Sheila's sister-in-law. And I don't have any big story, but I remember going to picnics over at Brad's for his birthday, and Janet would be there. And I was going to school at the time. Our kids were, our youngest were, I think, like maybe about 14 or so. So I was fairly old to be going to school, but every time I'd be there, she'd say, "Now, how is the classes going?" And you mentioned about in education being important to her. And she was just an encourager. And I wanted to get that out there. I'm sure many of you have been encouraged by her in some way. And I just wanted to say that she always made a point to do that. And I really appreciate it because she just asked me the things and she understood about things. I became a teacher. And so she would just, anytime I would see her, she'd make that connection. So I appreciated that about her, Sheila.
I'm only slightly more collected, so bear with me. I was, as my mom was saying, my grandma was a big attender of the arts and supporter of the arts, and she just always thought that that was like the thing to do. So when I was young, she wanted to enroll me in the Kids at Play, and so we ended up doing that. My first one was The Music Man, which was very upbeat. And the second one, Gary had said earlier, was a completely different tone. Instead of being a marching band, we did Man of La Mancha, so I started out in a dungeon for that one. But Grandma thought it was the coolest thing. And I still remember that when I would stay with her to do these performances, when we got to the dress rehearsals and just before the performances began, some of those wouldn't let out till like midnight, and she was always diligent. She always picked me up. It was never a problem, and I just thought that was the coolest thing, that I had a grandma who didn't think anything of it, being up at midnight and picking me up from rehearsal, and we'd come home and she taught me the greatness of a piece of apple pie with cheddar cheese at like 12:30 in the morning. But I just remember doing those with her, and she would always go out gardening during the day and take me to practice, and in the interim we'd go to other performances or sometimes movies at the little theater in town, because she didn't really want to see it if it was mainstream. She only wanted to go see it if it sounded really weird. But those are some good ones. So I just remember she was always up for it, and it was always no big deal, and she was always happy to be there for you, and however you wanted it to be. But she's like, yeah, let's go do it at midnight. And I was just like, my grandma picks me up at like 12:30 in the morning and feeds me pie.
Thank you so much for your remembrances. Simon?
So, as I think everyone's, I think everyone's pointed out, and I think my biggest memories of my grandmother were, going on long hikes or getting stuck on the other side of a rattlesnake from my dad and me. Just always going outside, always adventurous, always up for anything. Her children found poems that she had written, and I think this one is from her trip to the Grand Canyon. I think captures a lot of lessons in life that she taught all of us. It's from before I was born, but that doesn't mean it's not relevant. What I learned in the Grand Canyon. Beauty is simple. The world is more diverse than can be imagined. Persistence can accomplish great things. Erosion is always at work. You can't go back. How to run the rapids. 1, scout the rapid. 2, proceed with caution, slowly and in position. 3, use the current. 4, steer straight into a wave. Use power to correct direction. 5, don't relax until in still water. 6, some rapids are too dangerous and need to be skipped or portaged. Things come to an end. Thank you.
And so we end with gratitude. Thankful for the life of Janet Swanson. May her spirit know beauty and joy, and may a healing come to the hearts of those who mourn her. Our grief today is holy proof that Janet's life touched ours in a profound way. It is the mark of love, a mark of connection, and the mark of a life well lived. As is our Unitarian Universalist tradition, we will extinguish our chalice, and I offer these words from Kenneth Collier. I do not know where we go when we die, and I do not know what a soul is, or what death is, or why. What I know is that a song sung cannot be unsung, that a life once lived cannot be unlived, and that love once loved cannot be unloved. May peace be with us all. Gary, would you like to close with the ding?
Can I say just a couple words first? Yeah. Boy, that's impressive. They've mentioned several things that Janet was active in, and she was active with Troy, and I had the wrong opera that they worked on. It was Billy, rather than the other one. I'm summarizing in a slow way. At the beginning, you mentioned something that she did things on a whim. I know that because we're at the opera in Seattle, seeing Boris Godunov, And she came home and she booked a flight to Moscow, and she determined when to go by when they were going to be playing with Boris Godunov at the Bolshoi. And the picture here, she loved it. It's a Tokyo String Quartet. And the colors, you can look anywhere in that picture, and it's a happy picture. I like colors, really good colors, and I like them more since I've had cataracts removed several years ago. And there's a rumor that I may be colorblind, but I'm not. Christina thinks I'm colorblind because I don't know what T-A-U-P-E is. No color comes up, and I don't even know how to pronounce it because we were getting blinds. And so I'm colorblind. But you tell me red, yellow, blue, I know all of those. And there was one, I'm going slow, but I was reminding Jim that she was absolutely proud of him like you can't believe, and his family. She had pictures over at the home. And not only that, I was mentioning to someone that Janet was very, very well liked at where she was. And it got where, and she also, I think Jim mentioned that, or somebody, she loved drama and acting. And so when we would go, and I would take her over at Brookdale, and since she was really easy to work with and probably the sharpest one there and everyone liked her, we would enter the dinner room playing Aida with a bum, 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 bum. And we saw Aida several times at Jim's place, and I think his daughter may have been doing it because I have the ticket in Utah, and I'm closing it down. They're kind of related. I do have to remember that she loved Sheila, and she loved all of them. They're really proud of them. And we were there up at the house, emptying the house, getting it ready because her mom was going to move to Utah. And Janet had this thing ready where she would ask Sheila, is it 11 o'clock yet? Is it 11 o'clock yet? Sheila, I don't think she ever answered or what, but she was going to tell, if Sheila would say no or something, what she wanted Sheila to say, why 11 o'clock? She was going to tell her that Gary changes his underwear at 11 o'clock. So I just had to close that down. And well, that was real. After that, I could call over to the library or anywhere with the Karen or anybody where she worked, and I wouldn't even have to say it was. I'd just say, is it 11 o'clock yet? And and I'm going to have to improvise a little bit. I don't have the string, but it doesn't really make any difference. Who cares? It's music. I'll close this down. Is the hook coming out yet? I've got about one or two more tiny ones. Okay. She traveled a lot, and she loved to travel, and she had the cat Buddy. And I don't especially do cats or dogs or anything, but they have pictures of Buddy sleeping on my chest while I'm sleeping. And Buddy, I had people convinced he would follow me around. And we'd walk around the neighborhood, and some people came up with dogs on a leash and stuff. And I would say, heel, Buddy, because I know Buddy was going to go and run right by my heel, whether I said heel or not. And they'd look at me and wonder how I could do that. So, and one more pet story there. Sheila, they had very, very good dogs. And I could walk around Jasper or which one you had. And it was interesting because we'd go over there, and then sometimes people would come up with very, very expensive dogs or something and have them on a leash, and they'd go by and everything. And say, oh, excuse me. And what I would do, I knew Jasper was well controlled. I'd say, you should take him to...
Gary?
to training. See, that's the hook.
Folks can't, yeah. Folks can't hear you when you.
Oh, you
speak.
can't hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, a reprieve. And anyway, I'm walking and with Jasper, and he's coming, a very, very fancy dog with one of those 20-foot leashes and stuff. And I just dropped the leash on Jasper and said, walk. And we walked by, and he really slowed that dog over so fast, because he's one of those small dogs that don't. I gotta go in the captain. You know I will. Sorry about that. What's happening is there's so many different emotions, very positive, very happy. I'm happy to see all these people. I'm happy to see that. Oops, I didn't really forget about that. Okay. I'm looking up saying I'm happy to see myself. Oh, the intent was not to see that. The video was pretty well done. And I've been rich. I've been rich in the sense that Steve can come over and stop by my house and just say he's in the area and stuff. The next thing I say, we're talking to him, and after that, he's strong and everything. And I'm telling him I'm working in the backyard, and I've got a whole bunch of trees and stuff that's been cut down, and I'd like to clear them out. He comes around, we walk around there. Some of those big babies were big like that. He knows how to prune. Before he got to the backyard, he told us how to chop the azaleas down, and they grow and everything. And so here I'm getting, you can't get some.
Gary, the ding.
Oh, she wants a ding. But it's been so inspirational. Even without a string, I got a ding. But Janet is a joy. I don't have a ding. Okay. It was a joy to be with her. It's a joy to be here. And Jim, she really loved you. And one more just to show I can do that somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Janet's family says that each spring she would put together baskets of flowers from her garden to share with her friends. In honor of Janet, her family has put together flower baskets, which you'll see in the Commons and out at the Columbarium unless they've been brought in, and it brought beauty to our space today. The family is hoping that some of you will take those baskets home. For those who are here on site, please feel free to gather for refreshments and conversation just outside these doors and help yourself to a basket of flowers. For those who have joined us online, thank you for your presence today. May we go in peace, go in joy, and go in love. Amen.